if you're going to question my integrity, that's going to piss me off without me having a way to defend myself. If you're afraid of snakes and spiders and I throw one at you, you're not going to sit there and let it crawl over you. If you have a kilo and you're going to go to prison for 20 years and you're driving past a cop, you're going to have some reactions.
Welcome back to the IA Guy, a police podcast, here with your host, Marlon Marrache. Another banger, another great guest that we're going to have on. We're going all the way to the wonderful city of Indiana. Well, actually, the state of Indiana. And we're going to find out what city. But before we start with my guy, Kenny, first and foremost, Feliz 28 to all my Peruvians. Happy Independence Day to all my Peruvians. Tú sabes que siempre estarás en mi sangre y te quiero mucho, mi lindo Perú. So you can Google search and translate that in English. Much love for my beloved Peru. Kenny, thanks for coming, bro. It's about time that we actually make this happen, right?
Yeah, it's been a few technical difficulties in the process, but it's been a pleasure getting to know you over those times.
And you know what? And I gotta say my bad on that one. I think the last one, our connection, there was a glitch on the Wi-Fi, but we're up and running. And I gotta ask you right off the bat. Look, we talked about that you were a bartender. I guess what I'm really interested in knowing is that did bartending help you? I'm not going to say become a better police officer. Or did any of those skills where you're at the bar and everybody's like asking for drinks and there's just noise everywhere and chaos, did that help you in your law enforcement career? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it helped me. I mean, the biggest thing for me, I'm pretty introverted. So that had in order for me to get paid, I had to be a little bit extroverted. So at least the communication aspect that, and those types of things and the patient, you're dealing with sometimes people that are, a little intoxicated or tipsy and they're trying to order drinks for multiple people. And, your patience can wear thin. So patience was great for me, bringing me out of my shell a little bit, being a little more extroverted. If I wasn't getting paid. So I had to talk and communicate with people. And then, yeah, managing stressful and chaos you have people from all around the bar and yelling out things, and you have to, be very selective and I don't know. I guess systematical. You know what I'm saying? You have to be systematic when you're going around the bar. You can't just hang out at one area. You have to entertain all your guests equally in order to make money.
Well, that's pretty good. It's pretty equitable, if you will. I'm also curious to ask a bartender, when you became a cop, dude, did you spot someone that's DUI or drunk? I would imagine, dude. I don't know. What do you?
Yeah, I guess. You. At least people that
hey, dude, that dude's sauce stuff.
Yeah, especially I guess you're if you're going to a heavy bar area, people are walking around. You can kind of it's a little bit easier. I'm not really watching people drive when they leave from the bar, but you could kind of tell just people walking around or in and out of bars, hopping or something along those lines. You'd be like, yeah, that guy's or that girl's pretty good to go.
Because I never really asked if I wouldn't even say if it's a passion or anything about, hey, I used to do this before. Now I want to get into the DUI task force or just specialize in drug interdiction, which we're going to get into, right?
Yeah, DUIs weren't a big thing of mine. That wasn't a focal point. I mean, they happen, so you have to know what you're doing. But it wasn't there was no I don't know. There's always DUI grants and things that my agency would offer, but it was never something that I was super going out there to focus on.
Right. So Kenny, hey, you know what? This is an IA Guy, a police podcast. It's about internal affairs. I know I changed it. When I first started, it was the Internal Affairs, a police podcast. So we got to talk a little IA, man. So you came on the job in what year?
2007.
So let me ask you this: from 2007, when you were in the academy, up until today, as we're having this conversation, what is your impression of internal affairs back then compared to today? And has that impression changed? If so, how?
I feel like in the academy they kind of make you terrified of the whole situation. Like if you're dealing with an IE like it's like, oh, that's not something that's pleasant. But then when it comes to, I guess, more today, in this might sound, it's almost like it's a necessity, and it's good for us to, as law enforcement as a profession, to have, um, I guess, quote unquote, like a watchdog. Like where someone in internal investigations, especially if they've been an active cop and they've done things and they've been proactive and they can explain to, I guess, the admin or the media, like why things happen from a firsthand experience, and then also from, I guess, the admin aspect role of an internal investigator, where they know both sides of it, and they can kind of help that officer out. I'm not saying that all internal investigations end in a positive note, but
Right.
if it's something that just looks bad, but it's good police work, I think a good internal investigator can kind of smooth that over on both aspects.
Yeah, no, good point. Give me 1 second here. Idris, that arrow from the computer, it's not going to show? Roger that. Let me ask you this. You've been investigating for quite some time, and you're coming up on 20 years in 2027. Is that correct?
Yep.
So you spent the majority of your career investigating. You've been an investigator for quite some time.
We don't classify it working. I work on the highway, so a lot of the investigations. So if I get some type of stop or something like that, it gets turned over to our investigators, and I work hand in hand with them. But I'm not doing necessarily. I'm not going and watching houses, or I'm not following cars. It's more of me out there in the medium being proactive, trying to find intercept contraband.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. And kind of explain to me a little bit about when we talk about interdiction, what does that actually mean to that young cop?
For me, I'm a sports fan, so I use sports analogies. But basically, interdiction's like interception. If you follow football at all, like I'm the defensive back, and at point A, where contraband's leaving somewhere, it has to get to point B, which would be the wide receiver, tight end, or something like that. And
Right.
then I'm in the middle, and hopefully I can intercept that so it doesn't get into our communities.
Okay. So using uh, that football analogy, if you will, what is your favorite team? I take it you're an Indiana guy. Is that correct?
Yeah, I won't say my department on here, but I'm from northern Indiana, so
Right.
I'm a
So
Bears fan.
I was
I'm,
going to say, you're an Andrew Luck guy or you're just a Chicago guy?
I'm a Bears fan, and growing up, what got me into football is my great grandpa was a 49ers fan, so I still have a little admiration for the 49ers, but being so close to the Bears, it kind of changed over time, and regrettably so, I guess.
How cold is Soldier Field? Just out of curiosity.
So, um, I went to one of the 10 coldest games, and I think the actual temperature was like, I don't know, -5 or something like that. It was a
Oh,
Monday night game when they retired Dicka's jersey. I'd have to look it up, but yeah, it's
uh-huh.
in the winter and at night, it's brutal. It's not. It's right off the lake, and it's everything miserable you can think of.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I'm asking because I did spend about 3 months in Great Lakes,
Okay.
Illinois. We called it Great Mistakes because that's where Navy boot camp was at. So I was just curious because I can tell you, even I know it was below 30, but to me, anything after 50 here in the wonderful state of California and Los Angeles, anything after 50, dude, we got jackets on and we get cold. So
Yeah, 50 is a mild temperature here.
yeah, excuse me for digressing, if you will. Let's get right back to this. I'm asking as far as investigating because the next question I have for you is if you're in a room full of sergeants today, because sergeants are the ones who work at internal affairs, right? If I gave you the podium, so imagine you in a classroom right now and there's a whole bunch of sergeants and they're getting ready to begin their tour in internal affairs to work as investigator. What's the one thing you want them to know about that job? What do you think?
I think that your experience is going to lead you in the right way, and that we have a obligation to be transparent, both with the officers and both with the media. And your job is to, be as transparent as possible with both of them.
That's a good buzzword. Now you see, you open up that door for me because my next question to you is that are we really that transparent? What do you think?
I mean, I think certain agencies are. I think that we could do better. But I tell everyone like the body cam only gives you 180 degrees, you know, and you can't see 360. And I don't know what the answer is unless you had like drones following you around. But I do believe like I mean, if that was a feasible option, I think that that would be great because even if you look at the body cams, the way that they've been going, I feel like you were seeing less and less of these like one-offs where there's like a bad situation happen because and I don't know if that is because there's more body cams and cops are more conscious or if is it because cops have always been this way, but we were pulling out the 1% all the time. That was like something so egregious. And that's all we were seeing. We were never seeing the positive interactions.
Right. Now, w- and the other portion to the buzzword of transparency, from my lens, I look at it as if we're always telling the public about all these critical incidents, right? Wouldn't you agree? I mean, we have, I mean, there's laws in California where you have to tell the public within a certain amount of days, hey, let's tell you about this critical incident. You know, there's a YouTube channel, a briefing, and all that. But I've always wondered how transparent we are amongst ourselves, especially when it comes to an IA. And I can honestly tell you that I don't think we're good at that. What do you think?
So knock on wood. Um, I've never been the focal point of an internal investigation, so
Right.
I honestly don't know the inner workings. I know that some people that I've worked with have been part of them and stuff, but again, like in those situations, I feel like I again I was very they were very transparent with me, but I
Correct.
don't know how if you're the focal point of it, how that
Yeah.
would differ. I'm not 100% positive.
Right. Well, let me ask you this, though. Would you agree with me? And maybe you've seen this in your career where uh, sometimes, not all the time, right? The punishment's not actually the penalty, the punishment is the process. Would you agree?
Yeah, I in some situations I could see that. Yeah,
Yeah. In some situations, in other words, we take a long time for
yep,
whatever reason to get an
yep.
IA completed.
And that stress of being under that like is you know that stress alone has to be some astronomical weight where if you are thinking that you could lose your profession, you're going to lose your friends, you're going to lose everything.
Exactly. And I think that's where we fall short on transparency, you know. But then again, we're told what? We can't talk about it, right?
Yeah, I
You know,
mean, in some situations, if you're the focal point of an internal investigation, you can't talk to anyone from the agency. So, or like at least people involved in the same incident or something along those lines. Where now the people that were involved in that incident, if you work with them on a crew, they're probably your closest confidants in the agency. Now you can't talk to them until that's done, and I don't know how long. You know that I think that not only are we removing you from the police department, we're removing you from your friends, and then you know that stress and anxiety that's building up, you could turn to adverse things that you know will harm you in the long run.
100%. Spot on, brother, because I've always felt like, look, if we're going to be kept in the dark, I think that we can do better. That's just across. I think in just in our law enforcement career, which is probably one of the reasons, well, one of many reasons to have conversations about internal affairs, because I think that we can actually make a difference. Because wouldn't you agree with me that decades have gone by and we're this, like you said earlier, this necessary evil, right? We're this the dark side, or we're the blue falcons, or whatever the case may be. And what is it that we can do to change that? What do you think? How can we better this function that not many people are either they don't experience it or they're not familiar with it? What do you think?
I mean, yeah, just getting the word out there because I don't think a lot of people even know what you know what consists of and what consists of an internal investigation. If you're the focal point, what are they supposed to tell you? What are they, you know, like I don't even think I mean, if you came to me and told me something that I would thought was outrageous, but I've never been through it, I would almost agree with you. But if you come out here and put things out here where everyone knows and can look it up, I think that that will go a long way, put a lot of cops at ease when they're going through an internal investigation.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, have you had in anywhere in your assignments interrogate? I guess that's the best way to put it, and just in general, right? Interrogate a suspect for a specific crime where you're trying to gain a confession.
See, I've helped people interview and I've interviewed people, but it's at my angle, it's always to obtain more information, not necessarily about getting them to confess what they did, but it's
Okay,
about furthering that investigation, finding
correct.
someone maybe that's, you know, a bigger fish than they are,
Got
or
it.
something along the lines of like, how does this organization operate? So therefore, when I'm working the highway, I can just building intel on that organization more or less.
Got it. Now, let me ask you this. So when you're doing that, do you sometimes feel, or, like, man, you're lying, or you're just not telling me the truth? Because a lot of people don't want to tell the cops the truth. I mean, that's just in general. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they give you enough to suffice what your curiosity wants, but they're not giving you 100% of everything.
Right, right. And the only one of the reasons why I ask, and again, I understand lucky you, knock on wood, you've never had an IA. I can just tell you from experience that when certain accused cops, right, employees, officers, are accused of like serious misconduct. Let's take dishonesty, for example, right? Someone after, and this is the shittiest part, is you turn in your investigation and now you got the adjudicators, whether that's the lieutenant, captain, commander, deputy chief, or the chief. They're having these conversations to adjudicate this complaint. And then arbitrarily, someone just says, you know what? I think they're lying, which is fine. It's don't get that. Oh my God, I can't believe you think that. Okay, if you think they're lying, then shouldn't we like tell the investigator, now you need to do a subsequent interview? You're gonna have to re-interview them and ask hard questions. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's, I mean, we would do that in any other investigation. I think that's acceptable.
Yeah. Well, would you be surprised if I told you that that doesn't happen in, I'm not gonna, well, not just California, but in a lot of agencies?
I would not, I would not be surprised.
Right. And that's the shittiest part of, I've been thinking about that lately a lot, where, and you can agree with this because you've seen it, where there is this, um, your whole world just comes to an end when you find out you have an IA, and you're asking, uh, like, hey, what's going on with my investigation, right? And then here comes that day that you have your compelled interview with internal affairs. It gets turned in, and now when it's time to get served, and here's the outcome, and you have this dishonesty allegation, you're just looking at yourself like, well, hold on a second, now you're accusing me of lying. My thinking is, we should we should know that way before I'm getting served. One, two, and if you, internal affairs investigator, decided to do this job, guess what? It comes with some consequences. It's not easy. It's not easy to have a stare face to face at a colleague and say, "Hey, listen, you got to do it. Look, we think you're lying, and here are the reasons why." And then whatever answer they give you, you got to go with that. But at least you got to give them a bite of the apple. And unfortunately, it doesn't happen that way. And I think that's where the Blue Falcon and the all this negative stigma lies. What do you think?
So you're saying that basically through your investigation, you could say, I think he's lying and find him at fault for lying or her at fault for lying without ever confronting them with that lie? Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, your question, I mean, uh, your
Yeah.
integrity
It's
as a cop is like
surprising,
one of the,
isn't it?
yeah, shocking. Your integrity is like one of the only things you have as a cop that like, and I know a lot of cops pride themselves on, at least telling the truth, right or wrong. Like I made a mistake, being upfront and honest about it. So if you're going to question my integrity, that's going to piss me off without me having a way to defend myself.
One, two, and here you are at arbitration or, civil service appeal. You got fired, right? And if they call you on the stand to testify, you're going to say, hey, I did a second interview with him and I asked him 5 times about this lie. And you know what? This is what he told me. What else do you want me to do? And that's why I was asking earlier about the type of investigations that you do, because I've had guests who have been detectives who have tried to get false confessions, right? Or confessions from
Yeah, yeah.
suspects. Yeah. I mean, come on. If we do that as a job, as an investigator, as a detective, shouldn't we do the same thing to our colleagues? We should. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, we don't, brother. And I know I want to get off my soapbox, but I just thought it was kind of important to find out. And I appreciate you, participating along with this scenario. But yeah, it shouldn't come to a surprise, which it, I know it does, that we don't quite use the same investigative methods with our own, and it sucks.
Yeah, I wonder why that is.
I think it's culture. I really believe it's culture one, two, and I think it's just a misunderstanding, not knowing, which is super important in my opinion to have, like you said, to seek the truth, right? To be a truth seeker. When you get into this kind of an assignment, you should take it to heart, even though it might be like a bullshit kind of public complaint that it's like, this doesn't happen. But if we are going to talk about dishonesty, like you said, we're questioning your integrity, and
Yeah.
now it's a whole different ballgame. And so, at the very least, you know what? Have that interview where you're going to have to ask those really difficult questions. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do, but that's where we missed. Well, we dropped the ball there, bro.
Yeah. I mean,
So
if you're going to take the if you're going to take the assignment on, you have to, I don't know, do it to the best of your ability, whatever that assignment is. I feel like, and a lot of people in the profession get to an assignment and then it's almost like a coast. I can't say a lot, but there's people, there's people in the profession that get
oh
to
yeah,
an assignment. And it's almost like coast mode at that point. And I
yeah.
think that, I don't know, that's part of the downfall, and not just law enforcement. That's pretty much any profession.
In any profession, 100%. And I've heard it, and I'd be the first one to tell you also that some people, even me, hey, I just want to get that promotion, that rocker. It's an extra 5.5%, and it's like three more steps, so I'm going to get paid more. Some, hey, I got that feather in the cap, and it's going to help me make lieutenant. So it happens. Uh, Kenny, let me ask you this. Talk to me about the highway, man. I really want to learn about what you do and what you're doing. What's that all about, and how did that all start with you getting into this interdiction?
So when I got hired at the police department, I really didn't know what I was going to do. I just wanted to be a cop, and I get hired. We go to the police academy out of like a 16 or 18 week academy. I don't remember. There was like a 3 hour block with criminal interdiction, and I always had this aspiration to make a difference in my community. I have some family members that are addicted to narcotics, however you want to word it. And it was something that always impacted me. Like when I first went to college, I was going to go to be a teacher, and I thought that I could have, a positive impact on students by, if they have family members that are doing the same thing that my family members were doing, that they could see like that there's a path away from that.
Mhm.
September 11 happened, so I get police work, and then I'm like, all right, well, if I could just go find grams of narcotics, I'll be thrilled about it. And then these dudes in the class start throwing kilos on the table. I'm like, well, shit, if I get 1,000 of them at one time, like that'd be amazing. But I go back to my police department. We don't have an interdiction team. I bugged enough right people to get assigned to a part-time interdiction team after being on the job for 5 years with the state police.
Mhm.
I've had some luck up there, and then based on that, my department created a position in 2016, 2017,
Mhm.
and that's what I've been doing ever since. I work a dog. On my second dog, and I'm assigned to a multi-agency interdiction team that covers 5 counties in Indiana.
Oh, wow. Let me ask you this. What have you learned about yourself since you got into this unit?
Couple things, but patience is huge. You're out there and you're stopping cars and you're dealing with humans. Every human's different, so you have to do a lot of self-reflection. You can't look at people through your eyes. You have to look through their worldly eyes. And if
Mhm.
you're very closed-minded, you're not going to have a lot of success in interdiction. Probably not in the profession. So those are a couple things. As my time's gone on in the profession,
Mhm.
when I first started on the highway, I was working like an enormous amount of time not being paid because I was so passionate about it. And I've just learned that, there is great people that work interdiction, and I can't expect them to have the same motivation that I did. So those are my probably some of the, the bigger things that
Lessons
I've
learned.
noticed.
And how about training? What got you into get involved into teaching stuff like this?
So I never really had a lot of aspiration to teaching. Again, that introverted thing in me where like I couldn't imagine standing in front of people and talking. And for a long time, I had several companies that offered me opportunities, and I was like, man, I just don't think that I'm the one that you want. Like, I I have a lot of things that I want to accomplish on the highway, personal goals, and I think teaching would, not allow that to happen to it to its full extent. And then in 2000, trying to think, 2016 or 17, I went through it's called DIAP. It's Drug Interdiction Assistance Program through the federal
Okay.
government down in El Paso. And I was down there for 11 days and went through a trainer school. So
Okay.
that's what got my feet wet into the training aspect of that. And that was where I would basically, my department would give me the time off to go train. I wouldn't make any money. It's all like they would pay from, everything. I wouldn't be out money, but I wasn't making any money. And I did
Okay.
that for a few years. And then right before mid 2019, I started teaching, started my own company. And my main reason is because like DIAP is great, but it was a lot of focuses on other people's stops. And it was a curriculum that was not as rigid as most training is, but it's pretty rigid. Like I couldn't add my own stops into it. They had the stops that they wanted you to cover, and I couldn't elaborate a lot because I didn't know, I wasn't there on those stops sometimes. So
Okay.
I started my own so I could break down my own stops. And if there's questions that came up during class, I could really break down those stops and the human behavior aspect of it and, what I'm paying attention to in and out because I'm the one that's doing it. So that was the main reason. And I kind of saw a need for it when I was initially I was just on law enforcement platforms. I was posting old traffic stops and I was breaking them down and like educating people for free, just giving them. And I still do that on a regular basis.
Mhm.
But the amount of reactions and comments and questions that I would get from those, I was like, well, there's something here that, people at least want to learn about. And that's kind of what eventually pushed me to do my own thing.
Right. And that was my next question to you is you did say there was a need for it. Do you feel this though in our law enforcement community, this particular type of function, if you will, is lacking? There's not really a lot of young cops that really know about this drug interdiction.
I think that I guess when I first started, if I didn't have that 3 hour block, I would have been lost. I wouldn't even know what it was
Okay.
because you didn't hear a lot about it. But I think as time is evolving, I think young cops are they want to, when we become a cop, you want to make a difference. And I think that they see
Right.
the interdiction guys, pulling kilos out of cars, like that's how we can make a difference. So I think that the ones that are motivated to have a positive impact on society, I think that they are definitely motivated at a younger age than even I was probably.
Right. Well, interesting you say that because my next question to you is what's your thoughts about pretextual stops? We have these, I don't know what happens over there, but uh, we are talking about conducting traffic stops. Is that correct? For the most part?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, for the most
Right.
part. Yep.
Right. So, yeah, God, I really, back in my days, they used to call it dope money guns. For whatever reason, you get a traffic stop, you're going to find dope, and then there's money and there's guns. That's just the way it works. Dope money guns, dope money guns, is my FTOs used to always tell me. But as you may know, here in California, there's a lot of laws that restrict from conducting certain traffic stops. And so I just wanted to get your opinion about, and it's not just here in California. There is a lot of agencies and legislature out there that they don't really like for us to make traffic stops. What do you think?
I mean, I think that traffic stops are one of the biggest ways that we can deter crime and have a positive impact from people doing adverse things to the innocent civilians in this country. And if you're taking away the ability when these criminals are the most vulnerable, I think all it's going to do is they're going to thrive even more than they already do in a society where we can't, intercept them as they're committing a crime on their way to commit. And it doesn't have to be dope guns or money. It could be like someone that's going to commit a robbery, going to
Okay.
break into your house. Like there's every other crime. Like we talk about pretextual stops. The federal government has said that's 100% legitimate. Like we're allowed to do that. I know some states and some departments have put restrictions on it, but I think a lot of that is from the fear of those departments not understanding exactly what a pretextual stop is.
Mhm.
It has nothing to do with your sex, race, religion, anything along those.
Right.
Cops are out there looking for criminals. And if
Mhm.
you have these reactions to a cop sitting in the median or on the side of the road or anything like that, that's what the cops are looking for. It's no different. I use this analogy all the time. If you're afraid of snakes and spiders and I throw one at you, you're not going to sit there and let it crawl over you.
All right.
If you have a kilo and you're going to go to prison for 20 years and you're driving past a cop, you're going to have some reactions. Like it's physically impossible for you not to react in those situations. And again, like even if you react, is if you don't commit an infraction, I can't stop you. Like, like
Right.
there's certain ways like pretextual stops if you're leaving a dope house and I know I'm watching a dope house and
Okay.
I'm like, hey, you went in there for 3 minutes, you came right back out, and this is a consistent thing. I might not need an infraction based on my investigation at that point. But
Got
when
it.
I'm working cross country interdiction, I still need you to commit an infraction.
Yeah. Object hanging from a rear view mirror.
I mean, they made it a law, right? If it's obstructing
I
your
love
view,
that
it
one.
is. I mean, like that's where I get frustrated when people put it on the cops. Like, you voted legislators in, they created
Yeah.
these laws. We're just enforcing them. If you don't like it, vote someone else in and have them change that law. Like society is voting these politicians in to create laws, and these are the laws that they've created. If you don't like it, change the environment, change your
Well,
politicians, and have them change that law.
well, interesting you say that because hey man, I love the laws only because you're right. You get an infraction, bro. Next thing you know, like kilos come out of the car. I love the examples on you. Of course, you and I were always on YouTube, searching and scrubbing for content. I love the ones where you just do like it's like 2 in the morning and you're on a red, and then next thing you know, you're like, hey, can I have consent to enter your car? And you say yes. And then next thing you know, you got like kilos and money, all dope money guns all the time. You know what? The light bulb just hit because you mentioned something about perhaps maybe they're on their way of committing maybe a robbery or any other violent crime. Have you had a situation where you were on the highway? And I get it, it's drug interdiction, but have you had a detainment, if you will, right? Where they actually were in the process of, going to commit a violent crime, just out of curiosity.
So I don't know about going to. I've caught one of my I talk about all the time, but one of my most memorable stops is I had caught these two individuals that had just killed three people the night before and were headed back home, and the be on the lookout didn't even come out till the midnight. So this was maybe midday. And
Okay.
we got them with a couple pounds of marijuana, and one of the murder weapons was still in the car.
Wow.
So like I don't know, it's hard to quantify if I stop someone and then I let them go and they went to commit a crime. I don't know.
Right, right.
But that one is one that will stick with me forever.
That's awesome, man. I'd like to hear that, man. And the teaching. What's let's talk about I know we kind of talked about it, but tell us a little bit about your the company, bro. What's going on
So
with that?
yeah, me and my business partner, who's an attorney and a cop, he teaches case law for the company. It's called Justice Academy.
Okay.
JusticeAcademyTraining.com is our website. And we have one other instructor. She's an amazing lieutenant out of New Jersey.
Uh-huh.
And then I teach interdiction. Right. So we have case law interdiction. She teaches a leadership class and then a class that it's empowering women, but it's not like it's explaining what is expected of women in law enforcement, which is
Right.
it's very similar to what is expected of men. It's just coming from a female that's kind of been there and done that, and she has some very emotional stories, both
Of
on the
course.
job and off the job that she has been through, and things that she's had to deal with as a female officer. So it's a great class, and it just gives you a completely different perspective, male or female.
That's awesome. And I was going to ask you this too. Also, is what's been the most challenging? Um, I suppose I want to say portion, but what has been the most challenge into getting this company up and running and going through? You
I
know,
think all of
what are
us are
some of the
still,
obstacles? I guess
yeah.
that's the best question.
I think all of us still being active cops, it makes it a little more challenging. Like, we most of Mike has my business partner has a little more freedom and flexibility with his schedule, but
Uh-huh.
most of us maybe teach one class a month. So if you want to host us, like I'm already into 2026 because I'm only teaching one class a month. So like people will hit me up. I'm
Wow.
like, bro, like I'm already out here. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
feel bad. I feel bad because I can't be more places. But again, I'm still an active cop, so it's really really hard for me to get much more time off than that. If I travel to teach, no matter where it is, I'm the minimum taking 2 days or 3 days.
Yeah. Totally.
And based on times off and vacation and all that other stuff, I still have to keep my family happy and keep my department happy, and
That's
then
right.
so that's probably the most challenging aspect of it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Before I forget, if we move on to the next segment, I was going to ask you, talk to me about Beyond the Barrel. Let's go. What's that all about? How did that come about?
Yeah, that came out of nowhere, kind of. I, I'm a podcast guy, so like I always listen to podcasts. My first, I don't know, 10 or 12 years on law enforcement, I listened to music, and at this point, it's just kind of not bashing music. I love music, but it's just kind of like I needed something else. Like sitting in the media and I need something to stimulate my mind, not just listening to music. And for months at times, music kind of gets replayed, and then there'll be new stuff. But so I'm a podcast guy, and I've always listened to podcasts, and something that I always wanted to do. And on the selfish aspect of it, for me personally, the podcast is because when you go talk to a cop, you get maybe 10 minutes if you're lucky, no matter what. Well, now if I get you to commit to a podcast, I got you for at least an hour. So now I get to hear your whole story. And on the other end, I like to see, the backside of like how you got into law enforcement, what you do outside of the job.
Yeah.
This just give everyone a different perspective that cops are not just the uniform that they wear, that
You're
they're
right.
pretty much everyone, they're anyone else. And I think by opening people's eyes to see that through the podcast, I think that it would be beneficial both to law enforcement and to citizens.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? I'm just curious, man. When you heard about the Internal Affairs State Police podcast, what were your first thoughts, if any?
The same thing that they teach you in the academy. Like, to be honest with you, I'm like,
Like, who is this guy?
yeah, kind of. I was like, man, internal affairs, like this, that's a touchy subject, and kind of, like almost like a taboo subject. Like no one wants to talk about that stuff.
Right, right. Yeah. No, hey man, really it's been I've enjoyed the ride and I've learned so much. I get to meet people like you and I've never heard of drug interdiction and knowing your job, it sounds like a lot of work and it sounds like a lot of fun too at the same time. Look, next question I have for you is worst incident in your career.
For me personally, 5 years on the job, there was a kid that, not a bad kid, kind of just like a knucklehead, but not a bad kid, like by any means. And,
Mhm.
and I dealt with him several times. I've never arrested him. I never did anything, but I knew that he had a suspended license, and I'd got a new car. I went to stop him, and instead of he stopped, I get out, and then he floored it and
Okay.
got in an accident with it was like less than a mile, and I forget. I mean, he was going very fast, and he ended up hitting a tree and passing away. And still to this day, it makes me feel awful. I hate pursuits now from that. Like it is what it is. Like I know people like love them and stuff, but 18-year-old kid hits a tree. Um, it's hard to swallow, and it's hard for me to justify pursuits unless I know that you're like a violent felon or something, you committed some
Uh,
heinous act. Like, and ever since that day, I hate them. I just don't. I'm not a fan. Me personally, I'm not a fan of being in pursuits. So, that's some
yeah,
adverse effects to it, and I still feel bad. I still think about it.
yeah.
The ironic part about a month prior to the day, I had
Okay.
lost my sister
Mm.
to aortic dissection. Like basically her artery split in her heart and she died instantly. So I had a lot of stress going on at that time, leading it without even that incident happening. So those were some sad
Difficult.
and dark times. Yeah, some difficult times in my career. And but yeah, so like that was compounding effects to it. I think no matter what, I would have been pretty devastated. But you add 30 days to the day from losing my sister when she was 30 years old, and
Yeah.
then yeah, that happened.
You know what, brother? I appreciate you sharing that because as much as I don't like asking that question, and I'm going to contradict myself, I do like to ask that question. And it's because, you know what, as you're getting involved in law enforcement, this is what happens, man. This is what you sign up for. There's going to be tragedy in your life. There's going to be scars that are going to stay for you forever. And it's not always about, walking the old lady across, across the street. It's not really all about community policing. I'm going to say this, it's not all about TikTok cops and in uniform and doing your thing. And I'm sure we can have a whole different episode about that, but that's not what this is about. This is reality, and your darkest moments will happen in this career.
You kind of touched on that real quick. So, and,
Yeah.
and I'm not a huge like anti this or anti that, but I will say this: like, I love this profession, and I think that we need to glorify it.
Mhm.
That dark moment, if you're not mentally prepared for that, like, it's going to have really, really bad effects on you. And I wasn't really mentally prepared for it, but I was. I mean, to an extent, I was. I understood what the job entailed. I trained for all these things. I was on the SWAT team when this took place. Like, I was ready for if bad things were to happen. I was mentally preparing myself going down that road of, bad things happening.
Uh-huh.
Two things on social media that really bother me. It's like constant negativity from outside, from within law enforcement, anything like that. Because what you're doing is that's constant negativity. You're focusing on, I don't know, I'm going to throw a number out there, 5% of the population of law enforcement,
Right.
that maybe even less than that. But like, and if it's all negative and you're an 18 to 21-year-old kid, why would you sign up to be a cop? On the
Yeah.
other end of the spectrum, it, if you're showing young aspiring cops that dancing on in uniform and not being mentally prepared for the job, you're giving them a false perception of what the job is. So now I can come into the job and be like, oh, I can sit in my car once I get out of the academy and dance and do all these things and not pay attention and whatever the situation may be. And now all of a sudden something really bad happens and you start to see some of the shit that you've only seen on movies and now you're seeing it in real life. You're not mentally prepared for that stuff. Like
Yeah.
I personally hate seeing dead bodies, no matter what, natural, not like I hate it. But I know that about myself. If you
Yes.
go into this profession and you think that you're never going to see a dead body, you're damn wrong, and you're going to have adverse effects from it because you're not mentally preparing yourself for it.
Yeah, and very well stated. I would only add that a lot of what you're saying is it describes someone that's very self-serving. In other words, if you decide to come on the job to, yeah, look at me, and it's all about me, and now I'm dancing uniform and this and that, you're doing it for it's self-serving. And on the other side of the coin, if you're bashing and being very negative, because come on, we are our worst enemies.
We are.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah,
Do
100%.
you remember? Do you recall that one incident? I don't recall where it happened, where there was it was a radio call at a assisted living, old age home, where the guy had a chainsaw
Yes.
inside, right?
Yep. Yep.
And the cop shows up, and he gets flagged down first. Then he gets the 911 call, and he shows up, and he's there. He's right in front of him, and the suspect has a chainsaw, and next thing you know, he's like wrapping it up to start it. And if you recall, there he pulls out his taser first, right?
Yeah.
And he says, "Put the taser down, put the taser down, put the taser down." And then he corrects himself and says, "You know what? Put the chainsaw down." The guy's a nervous wreck from the get-go,
Yeah.
right? And then next thing you know, when the chainsaw starts, that's when the darts deploy, right? And then, of
Yep.
course, if you watch the whole thing, it was an OIS. It ended up being an officer involved shooting. And here's the deal: the amount of comments, quote unquote. Here's my favorite one: is don't bring a taser to a chainsaw fight. It just blew my mind, blew me away. And I say this because, one, first of all, where have you had a scenario where you've had something like that? One, two, is that the first thing you're going to think about your fellow officer in a situation that's super stressful? And the guy's a nervous wreck.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell that he's stressed based on
Yeah,
you don't have to like. I think he even has like really like labored breathing and stuff. But in that to put the taser down, that's because that's like his brain is just trying to focus and trying
right.
to so like that's that that's a stressful situation for the guy.
Right. And to my point being is that we're the first ones to say that, well, dude, you could have done this, you could have done that. Why bring that was my favorite quote. Why bring a taser to a chainsaw fight?
I'm not and people probably hate on this, but I'm not opposed to tasing him when it's not started. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if you're gonna deploy it right away. Don't let him get it
Well,
started.
look,
You know what I mean? Like, but
exactly.
yeah,
Look, he was a young cop,
he was
and
young. Yeah,
yeah, we're taught to de-escalate. He's got less lethal. Look, you got to take all these things into consideration and understand the circumstances. My point is that rather than bash him and pass judgment on this poor young officer, you know what? Just take it for what it is. Put
educate
yourself
him.
in, educate him, or put yourself in his shoes. And here's the deal: that incident could have been so traumatic, to your point, where you're not mentally prepared, right, to what
Right.
you were saying. How do you know that maybe a couple of days go by and he walks into the office, to the chief's office, and says, "You know what? This is just not for me. I can't take this. This is too traumatic." We don't know that. And then what are we going to say? Oh, you're a coward because, look, let's just stop being so negative And that one always sticks out. And we are just so quick to pass judgment, and we are our worst enemies. And I agree with you, brother. I think we got to stop that. We shouldn't do that. That's not why we have social media platforms to give that message. If anything, let's educate, let's have a good conversation and learn what it is that we do. I mean, I never knew about drug interdiction, and you certainly haven't even had an IA. So,
Hopefully it stays that way.
and
But
hopefully, go ahead.
with what you were saying, when it comes to if he did resign in a few days after that, like I think that it takes a strong-minded person to have enough self-reflection to be like,
Spot on.
you know what, like I thought this was something different.
Correct.
I have no ill will or like I don't look at it in
Right.
someone that, in a different light if that's the case. Like
Yeah.
I think it takes a bigger person to realize that
Right.
and know that you dedicated, I don't know, say 5 years or less to the profession, but you still
Yeah.
dedicated to be like, well, this one incident, man, I got to go. Like this is, I'm
This
not
is not
mentally
for me.
prepared for this, or
Yeah.
like, yeah, like I'm, yeah, whatever it may be. But
Yeah.
I think it's good. I don't
I
think it's
think
a bad thing.
I don't think so either. I think it's fair. It's fair and reasonable to walk in and say, you know what, this is just not the job for me. This is not my profession. This is not what I want to do for the rest of my life, or 20 years or whatever, to make a career out of it. I had a classmate halfway. This is in the academy. I had a classmate who was a hell of a runner, had a full scholarship to run cross country, one of our best runners. And you know what? 5 months, I think halfway through the academy, ours was a 7-month academy. He walked in and said, I don't want to be a cop. This is not for me. And that's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair.
Yep.
So thank you for sharing that, Matt. Look, before we wrap it up, I know we talked beyond the barrel. Where can we get a hold of you in terms of your classes? I think it's fascinating. I got to check one out because I'm really interested.
It's justiceacademytraining.com. Everything will be there. That'll take you even to like the podcast. That'll take you to merchandise that we sell. That will take you to pretty much everything that we do is all focused on the Justice Academy training site.
Cool, cool. And last but not least, look, I'll leave the floor up to you. Any advice that you have for anyone that wants to come on the job to be a cop, man? What kind of advice you have for them?
Advice for aspiring cops, I think that you have to realize how much you communicate. And communication, I hamper on a lot, but communication gets you in a lot of situations and it can get you out a lot of situations. So if you have this ability to look at people with sympathy, empathy, and understanding and communicate that well into any situation, and it's gonna prove your career is gonna have so much more success. Also with that, like if you're going to, you have to come in this and look at things not only from your eyes, but from a more of a worldly perspective. So if you are an only child and you grew up in a small community and then you go work in Chicago PD, at least try to get some people around you that grew up in bigger households, many siblings, or grew up in the city, and to introduce you to that culture, because it's going to be a culture shock if you go from a small community to a major department, or vice versa. You come from a major department and you come to a rural county, like the communication level is completely different. It's completely, you have to be able to recognize that stuff though.
Yeah, no, great advice, man. And I guess I look forward for an invitation to Beyond the Barrel. I think that
Yeah, absolutely. We'll touch base after this and I'll get you scheduled in.
yeah, let's do it, man. Hey, Kenny, man, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's just a podcast friendship for life, and I hope to see you soon. I know, like I told you, I'm going to be up teaching an officer involved shooting up in the wonderful state of Illinois, and I'm hoping that you can join us or somehow, some way we can connect. And thank you for your time, and I really appreciate it.
No, it's my privilege. Thanks for having me. And I'll definitely try to make it to that class.
For sure. Okay, we're going to wrap it up, and please be safe out there. And like always, don't forget to go Code 6. Thank you.